I am so sorry, but I haven't memorized my homily for today after the vigil. Luckily, I have a lot of secret pockets in my cassock. So, know that I'm ashamed of myself for needing note cards on Easter Sunday. So, we have so much happening in this gospel. There is so much to reflect upon. A lot of it will go right over our heads the first time we read it, or the 10th time we read it. But in these 9 little verses in the Gospel of John, we come to the realization of the Easter mystery. That is, the reality that Jesus Christ is and was the Son of God. And as the other characters in this story begin to realize that, albeit on their own time, the discipleship competition begins to brew among them. Now, discipleship competition. The disciples were entirely comfortable fighting with each other for favor with Jesus. Way earlier in the gospel, James and John Zebedee, with the help of their mom, try to become the top 2 guys of Jesus. And while they don't get what they want, but the other disciples knew exactly what they were trying to do, and they did not appreciate it. But before this reading, Jesus was still hanging out with the disciples, keeping them in check. But now, in chapter 20 of John's Gospel, the second to last chapter, I'll remind you, well, we have an empty tomb. Jesus is not there. He can't be a referee anymore, and the discipleship competition has to sort of continue on its own. So in this competition, there are 3 contenders, and all 3 of them have a pretty good argument for why they are the closest disciple of Christ. So the first one is Mary Magdalene. Okay? She is always at Christ's side. Even when all the male disciples run away to save their own skin, she's the one that stays by his side. She is one of the last to be at the foot of the cross with Jesus' mother, and she is the first one at the tomb. So Mary Magdalene-style discipleship is one of friendship and loyalty to the very end. All right? Jesus helped her earlier on, and she served him faithfully ever since, probably out of simple gratitude and love. So if you think you're a Mary Magdalene-style disciple, you're probably the sort of person that is there for a friend even when everyone else has turned away. And then we have Peter. Peter, God bless him. So we have a term when we talk about Peter, Petrine. When we talk about the letters of Peter, that is Petrine theology. So right now I'm talking about Petrine discipleship. And Petrine discipleship is normally talking about the Pope, church hierarchy, chains of authority and all that jazz. Peter is the rock on which God built his church. And he is the one that Christ says, feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Lord, you know I do. Then feed my sheep. So Peter is a little thick. He's a little slow. He's something of a loudmouth. And he certainly has a bit of a temper. But he's also the one that understands in the end, and besides denying Christ 3 times during the crucifixion, he never fails to do what must be done and to fulfill Christ's wishes. So, Petrine discipleship is for you, first of all, if you believe and value in God's power to forgive your many failings. That's Peter more than any other disciple. And this is the discipleship for you if you value at least a little bit of structure in your community. But most importantly, this is your discipleship style, if you see yourself as at least a little bit priestly. And I don't mean wearing a black shirt and a white tabbed collar. I'm talking about being a conduit for the blessings and sanctification that God graces on the world every single day. When you are a vehicle of blessings and holiness, that is priestliness, and we all get that at baptism, every single one of us. And finally, we have the beloved disciple, whom we typically call John. That's an assumption on our part. He's the quiet one. He doesn't say much, but he's always listening. And he also doesn't do much. He's the thinker, not so much the worker. And he's the contemplative one, he's the prayerful one, and he's the one that believes with the least amount of hesitation. And Jesus Christ loved him more than any other disciple. But he never commissions the beloved disciple for a specific task, the way he did for Peter and a few of the other disciples. So John is really his own class of disciple. So this is your discipleship style. If you meet Christ in extraordinary terms, he's sort of the opposite of Peter. If faith means more to you than rules or structure, you're more like John than Peter. But more than any of those reasons, this is your discipleship style if you have the power to see God when no one else can. Believe me, that is a gift and a blessing. So, those are the big three, at least for this reading. Now, at face value, this is kind of a strange Easter message. I mean, I've barely mentioned Jesus. Here's the connection. The split of different discipleship groups has existed ever since this reading. Ever since the tombstone got rolled back, there was a split. And that split of discipleship exists right up today. We love to fight with non-Christians. And then we love to fight with non-Catholic Christians. And if there's any time left over, we fight amongst ourselves. And I'm not at all convinced that when we do that, we're fulfilling Christ's wishes in any way. So for those of you that know at least a little about me, you know that I'm a fan of C.S. Lewis. And when C.S. Lewis wasn't writing about Narnia, he had a thing or two to say about Christianity. And his most popular and well-known nonfiction book is called Mere Christianity. And why that title? He's making the point that we are all merely Christians. Okay? We are followers of Christ. That's the end of it. Okay? We're not Reformed Church of Christ Christians. We're not liberal Catholics. We're not Tridentine Rite Catholics or Jesuits or Dominican or diocesan priests. We're not transsubjective, objectivist, determinist Catholics with political, conservative leanings and liberal agendas. None of that. None of that. We're Christians. We're disciples of Christ. That's what matters, and that's what counts. And the desire to be unified in Christ, that absolutely is an Easter message. Because the reality of Christ's saving power is realized today at the tomb. Everything Jesus did with salvation had to be seen after the fact, after this reading. This is the day in which it all began. Christ is the Son of God. And that makes this a Christian holiday. All right? Don't worry. We have plenty of Catholic holidays where we can revel in our Catholicness. Or is that just me? No, we got Ash Wednesday, we've got All Saints' Day, the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. We've got the Catholic holidays. Easter is different. Easter is a day that we all share, whether you're Mary Magdalene, Peter, or the beloved disciple. This is the day we all look into the tomb at the same time, and just for a moment, we're awestruck together. And so even if we break off into our separate groups this afternoon, at least we're together on Sunday, Easter morning. And only Christ can do that. And that is absolutely something to treasure year after year. So, I pray that this day is joyful and holy for all of you. And I pray that it spreads to those in your lives, your friends and your family, even your rivals and your enemies. Because at least for today, we're all one with Christ. And may his peace reign forever and bring us ever closer to the kingdom of heaven.